You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, it's still me.
Immortality. Such a curious thing. Life is a performance, and the world is a stage. We all play our parts before we ultimately give our final bows. So, in this metaphor, what is immortality? Is it a performance that never ends? Is it a performance that will never be forgotten? And is the price for such a thing worth the cost? For where one performs at the stage, it is up to each actor to determine the worth of their performance. And some of them will do anything, no matter how heinous, for their dance macabre. This is the circus of life of William Afton. The successes that would shape his legacy, the failures that would deteriorate it, and the atrocious horrors he committed that would ultimately immortalize it. William Afton, the purple guy, the golden rabbit. A horrific story follows him, paving a path drenched in deceit and blood, known as the Missing Children Incident. The story behind the malevolent murderer is one of ego poisoned by despair, centered on human tragedy. Everything that happened surrounds this event and leads to the ultimate questions when looking at his performance. How much does it take before ego usurps humanity? And was the ovation he coveted worth the final cost?
The show will begin momentarily. Everyone, please stay in your seats.
Autumn 1970. Posters around welcome families to Fall Fest, with its displayed main attraction, a circus tent. Inside, there was a show run by various anthropomorphic animals with bright red cheeks, performing alongside jesters reminiscent of the sun and moon, painting the dramaturgical dichotomy of comedy and tragedy. But at its center, directing the other animals, was a yellow rabbit, dressed in a fine purple vest and a purple bow tie. This was the ringleader of the Golden Rabbit known as William Afton. While the information of William Afton's past is nebulous at best, it centers on his career at Fall Fest, and thus his nostalgic fixation with it. After all, when Afton would go on to found Afton Robotics LLC, the heart of the show was the Funtime Animatronics, a group of robots developed to look and act as if they were circus performers. No matter the events that would follow, it was clear that the circus meant everything to William Afton. Likely because this circus would be the beginning of his success, but more so the beginning of his performance.
A performance was demanded of me, and now I have delivered. Encore!
The approval of the audience, an instant gratification and validation of one's performative skills. This, as the story unveils, will prove to be at the heart of William's need. The need to be admired for the ultimate performance, his performance. But what if the performance could be enhanced? William had orchestrated the use of costumed performers to some success. But what if they could sing without having someone inside the costume? What a vision that would be! It would be a show no one would forget. It was likely this inspiration that guided Afton's design and ambition, guiding the circus leader to become acquainted with a toy maker. A genius inventor with an incredible insight into robotics and technology, Henry Emily. Whatever set of circumstances that brought these two men together is not clear, but what is clear is that these two men, the creator following the entrepreneur, turned the costumes into robots. They created the singing Fredbear who performed for children's entertainment. This was a technological marvel that would become a miracle for their brand. However, this was only the beginning, for they had more costumes to turn into animatronics. The bear was joined by Chicken, a bunny, and a fox. Perhaps even a small robot that would hand out balloons for children, their bright red cheeks marking them as members of the Fall Fest Circus and Fredbear's singing show. But pure creativity is an infinite resource, flowing like a river with no end. And so the two friends would continue progressing their innovation with limitless possibilities. The brilliance of Henry's machinery and William's performance were unmatched, eventually creating a unique type of performer. A clown that would imitate the behavior of the leading performer. A machine that could mimic everything it saw. But the greatest innovation had yet to be seen, for the two friends would combine their fields to create something never seen before.
Right now we have two specially designed suits that double as both animatronic and suit.
Spring-lock animatronics, the possibility for a person to wear suits that would otherwise contain animatronic skeletons. A hybrid of William's costumes and Henry's robots, representing the merger of two brilliant minds. Their ambition and technological marvel attracted business and capital, leading to unprecedented success. Fallfest would last for well over a decade with this success. But that was not all. Their work would be so significant that they founded an entirely new enterprise around 1979 that would predominantly be renowned for family entertainment such as pizzeria venues, a corporation named after the singing bear that started their success.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike. Remember to smile, you are the face of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Fazbear Entertainment, Fallfest, and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This was William Afton's success. An ambition fulfilled thanks to Henry's help. A performance enhanced by technology. Alongside having family and children, the two men had reached what many would call the dream of success. But make no mistake, it was not the family that was Afton's greatest achievement. To him, Fazbear Entertainment, and more so Fallfest, was the ultimate glory. Everything about William Afton centers on his performance and how the stage that is life witnesses his glory. From how he treats his family to what others could mimic and see of his character, William Afton's ego and identity was centered on the ambition surrounding his performance. The business he ran, the career he successfully created. True, he had help from Henry, but he was the circus leader. He was in charge. His life's work, his very legacy, was shaped through his vision. If only that vision didn't blind him to his mistakes. The mistakes that would shape into horrors that would begin the toll of the dead.
I could make myself sleep, but not yet. Not until I undo what he has done and heal this wound. A wound first inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed out to cause all of this.
The first crack that marks the fall of William Afton is something unknown. A wound first inflicted on Henry. We don't know yet exactly what it was, only that it was something that Henry regrets not stopping. He allowed it to persist, something that in hindsight would lead to the horrors Afton orchestrated. Perhaps it's something that would explain the mimic's darkest tendencies, a psychopathic narcissist that would do anything for his performance. This performance, this wound, that would form with the blood of the incident in 1983, all stemming from how Afton failed his own family.
Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my halls? All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb.
William Afton was the father of 3, 2 boys and a girl. His sole daughter was named Elizabeth, his oldest son was named Michael, and his youngest was named Dave. But it was clear that family was not a priority in William's life. as his absence suggests that if they were once important to him, then that has ceased to be a long time ago. At most, they were the decoration of his success in life, and decoration is pretty to look at, but easy to ignore. Thus, William would ignore Dave's crying and solitude. He would ignore Michael's frustration and aggression. He ignored how Michael would bully Dave, for William only cared so far as to put spy cameras in Dave's favorite Fredbear toy. But William truly only cared for his legacy and industry. If only he had cared for his son's well-being. If only he had cared that Michael was a troubled child who needed direction. If only he had cared that Dave was an emotionally scarred boy that needed comfort. If only he had cared enough to be present at Dave's birthday party to prevent the horror that was about to happen. Michael and his friends decided to bully Dave with a prank, putting him in the mouth of one of the Springlock animatronics, unaware of their design flaws. Due to their sensitivity to rapid movement and liquid, the Springlocks caused Fredbear's mouth to close violently on Dave's head, crushing it. While he was rushed to the hospital, there was nothing that could be done, and Dave died in his sleep, surrounded by medical equipment. Furthermore, because of this incident, the Springlock animatronics were deemed unfit for use and were retired to another location. The merger between William's original design and Henry's technological prowess had been deemed too dangerous and removed. All with the death of his youngest son. Then, the same year, Fall Fest of '83 became an unmitigated disaster when a fire broke out, burning down carousels and endangering lives. It's no surprise that Fall Fest now only exists in the vaguest memories of history.
Might as well face the facts. You were always destined to fail.
William Afton's glory was gone. He had failed as a father and as an entrepreneur. Even if he had little care for his son, the son's death represented the loss of the Springlock suits. Afton began to drink and became a frequent patron of the local bar Juniors. His family fell further apart, with his wife ultimately leaving him and his son being consumed by guilt. In another life, William may have looked at his mistakes, realizing how he indirectly killed his son and how he needed to step back and help his family even a little, to focus on the career that he had left and improve upon it.
I'm sorry, but there was never enough room on this stage for both of us.
But Afton is a man of ego. His very voice drips with entitlement and arrogance, like he's above reproach. Thus, instead of humbly accepting his own flaws, he arrogantly looked outwards for blame. Instead of embracing his son, he would use the technology he developed later to psychologically torture Michael and even break him. And instead of focusing on his future career, he fixated on the past career and blamed the one friend that joined him on this journey. Such is the mind of a narcissist with psychopathic tendencies.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
William's grandiose sense of self-importance would not allow him to reflect that he could be at fault here. His son was dead, and Fallfest was burnt down. Now the only part of his legacy that remained was what Henry had built. The idea that William had failed was an anathema, and fueled by despair, his egocentric mind blamed everyone but himself. He blamed his son instead of his own neglect. He blamed the public that forgot about him. Everyone looked at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and saw the glory of Henry's achievements. Not William's work, not his sweat, his tears, his blood, his suffering. No one would perceive his brilliance. What a terrible lie. And finally, William's envy would blame Henry. It was his machine that killed his son, his technology. And everyone was going to praise Henry and ignore William's loss? No! William refused to let himself be cowed. He would not be broken by all of this. He would persevere. He would come back. He was the circus leader. He always comes back. Now his legacy had been tainted, and the world would ignore his pain and suffering like nothing happened.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
Fazbear was his. If he could not have it, then no one could have it. And he would use the same technology to make it all happen.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
It's not clear whether Afton Robotics LLC was founded before or after the events of 83. Perhaps it was a planned sister location that was meant to expand the franchise. Regardless, William Afton used this industry to stage his legacy. One that would tear down Henry's. By this point, he had a full understanding of animatronics from watching Henry, and using this technology, he had enough to create the fun-time animatronics for the upcoming Circus Baby's Pizza. This new event garnered much excitement from the locals, and should in theory have satisfied William's need for validation. But it didn't. Likely because this was a sister location to Henry's legacy, and not the other way around. So that had to change, and a dark design choice within his work gives us a hint to what that was.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day. What a wonderful day, though. I would always count the children. I'm not sure why.
The star of the show was Circus Baby, a unique animatronic and the centerpiece of Afton's sister location. Equipped with mimic voices, Circus Baby and her troops could maximize the appeal to lure children close, all in accordance with the circus leader's will. For deep within, Circus Baby was equipped with the means of capturing a child when it was left alone. After all, the ringleader knows his audience, and a child's disappearance, or even death, would ultimately hurt Henry's legacy. Afton was quite aware of the horror he was plotting. But he had not accounted for the next result.
Daddy, why won't you let me play with her?
William's daughter, Elizabeth, had been the supposed inspiration for Circus Baby. Whether that was true, or he just tried to give the impression of being a loving father, William ultimately forbade her to get close to Circus Baby. He knew what would happen if she was alone after all. Of course, being as stubborn as her father, Elizabeth wanted nothing more than to see the robot made in her image.
Daddy, just once let me go play with her. She's so pretty and shiny. Didn't you make her just for me?
William may have demonstrated some humanity and care for his daughter by warning her. Maybe William did care for his children, or perhaps more likely, it is the act of caring that mattered. Another masterful performance from the snake oil salesman. Though it was clear he was not a good father, for he only went far enough to warn her and no more. Oh, what a mistake.
Daddy isn't watching.
I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me. 2, then 3, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 2.
If only Afton had paid more attention. If he had only listened to his daughter's insistence on seeing the doll. If he had gone himself with her, then nothing would have happened. For Circus Baby could even dispense ice cream. Afton was impressed and proud of this, for within this deceitful design, he had delightfully hidden his trap.
Don't tell Daddy that I'm here.
There were 2, then 3, then 5, then 4.
I wanted to watch a show too.
Ice cream. I scream.
There were 4, then 3.
She screamed, but no one would hear.
Then 2.
I don't know why he won't let me come see you. You're wonderful.
Then 1.
Where did the other children go?
By the time William found her, it was too late. Circus Baby's Pizza was cancelled. The official story of this event would be due to gas leaks, though the locals would be dubious about this account as they witnessed some strange inconsistencies. People ultimately moved away from the short-lived sister location. But now, William had lost his daughter because she didn't listen. No one listened to him or appreciated his knowledge and warnings. His creation had killed his daughter, and he was forced to hide the truth of her death. His second child dead from his creation, like the first. But the show must go on, and if he couldn't use his robotics to perform the deed, he would simply have to do it himself.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
Around June 26, 1985, someone dressed as a company mascot managed to lure children to a back room of some kind, only for the children to mysteriously vanish with no trace. While they were presumed dead, the bodies were never found. This was the moment known as the Missing Children Incident, the event that would plague Freddy Fazbear's Pizza more than any of the other incidents that followed. The Enterprise would try to recover, but the death of Charlie, Henry Emily's daughter, would toll the death of the franchise. Everything that this story has uncovered has built up to this moment. Understanding the chronology and psychology of William Afton is through tracking the leaves of a tree to its branches and ultimately the roots. The Missing Children incident is central in this understanding, and through analyzing his modus operandi do we fully begin to understand William Afton. First, William picked a location to perform the murder, the safe room. Every location is built with an extra room meant for safety and storing equipment, which is hidden to customers, invisible to animatronics, and is always off camera. Next, Afton would dress up as one of the mascots to lure his victim into the safe room, where he would commit the murders before hiding the bodies. All of this suggests that everything was meticulously planned out to avoid capture. But it's the choices made within these acts that reveal more about Afton.
Management has also been made aware that the Spring Bonnie animatronic has been noticeably moved.
When committing the crimes, he chose the Spring Bonnie suit. Everything suggests that this is a consistent part of William's modus operandi. But why not choose different costumes each time to keep himself hidden? Why take this risk for something seemingly unnecessary? Well, because to Afton, something was necessary about this. He felt the need to wear this while targeting his first 5 victims.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
William's first victim, not counting his own children, was a little girl named Susie. Her dog had been run over by a car, and Afton manipulated her by convincing her that the dog was alive and that he could take her to him if she followed Afton. He preyed on a vulnerable target to lure her in and was likely a victim of opportunity. This was the modus operandi he likely used for the other children, but in his ego, the excuses became more and more outlandish. This indicates his performative ego. But aside from this, is the connection between the victims that is of interest, or rather, the lack of one. The 5 victims were Susie, Fritz, Gabriel, Jeremy, and Cassidy. Ages unknown, different genders, and seemingly no connection between them. except Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. They were chosen and murdered simply for being present. The sixth and final victim was Charlie, Henry's daughter, who was killed while she was alone and vulnerable. This was a quick, personal kill that further cements Afton's motive. The final consistent part of his modus operandi for his first 5 victims was how Afton hid the bodies, by stuffing them into animatronics. Whether they were alive or not is unknown, but considering how his daughter died, it would not be a stretch to imagine that Afton wanted to hurt them similarly. After all, would you hear the cries of a single child in a pizzeria full of them? Hidden while the animatronic would wander around, a tomb roaming innocently through the restaurant. And with this, Afton's motives becomes clearer. A spiteful ego fixated upon an immortal performance.
Fascinating. What they have become.
First Chica, then Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, and finally Golden Freddy. The animatronics would perform and play with children trapped within them, all while their parents would worriedly cry out for them, unaware of how close they were, performing their songs while being tainted by the rotting corpses within. By wearing the spring Bonnie suit, he donned the role of the circus leader once more, conducting a dance macabre that no one would forget in their despair. The murder of Henry's daughter was another opportunity to spite Henry, to spite the Fazbear name, and ensure that it would suffer the very same rot he perceived he had suffered. William usurped Henry's legacy by destroying it, creating an immortal legacy that would never be forgotten. They would know it was his form, the Golden Rabbit, that orchestrated these events. He needed to be immortalized, even if this performance was only enjoyed by him alone. This was William's narcissistic need. And even when he was initially suspected, he managed to avoid a conviction. He was the mastermind, and he had won, while his trophies wandered around, rotting away like the franchise itself. But as time passed, William would notice something else. The animatronics started smelling, but also acting strangely. Especially the puppet that failed to protect Charlie. It was like they were alive somehow. William began studying the animatronics and noticed further discrepancies. Circus Baby, whose eyes were originally blue, had changed color to the same green eyes of his daughter. Through the study, he uncovered a remnant of the children who died that allowed the inanimate objects to become sentient. This became Afton's next obsession, as he would use his Afton Robotics LLC to uncover more, performing macabre experiments, and ultimately creating a machine called the Scalable Creation of Ulterior Presence, or SCOOP, which could contain and inject a remnant.
How can I resist a promise such as this?
With his performance, Afton yearned for immortality. To never be forgotten, to always return and live eternally. But here, he had found scientific proof of life beyond and how to use it. Years after Fazbear had to close and the old animatronics were stored away as no one would purchase them, Afton returned and began to disassemble the animatronics he had usurped as part of his performance once upon a time. This was likely to find more remnants that he could use for his experiments. But one rainy night, when Afton entered the old pizzeria and its safe room, he was suddenly approached by the ghosts of his victims. He panicked as his fear for death and yearning for immortality was now clear. He would not permit these things to touch him. He had to survive! But how? At that moment, he saw his old spring bonnet suit. The ringleader eagerly entered the costume. Inside, he was powerful, immortal, and safe. He laughed at his superiority. He was brilliant. He was William Afton. And he would not be broken. No one would find William Afton. The safe room would be sealed up, and everything was left inside, as the management asked to keep the existence of the rooms secret and forgotten. Likely orders from Henry himself. As such, Afton was left to rot, as the world moved on without him. But he did not die. The power of Remnant kept Afton alive in this spring trap, but in perpetual agony. Nothing more than a corpse rotting inside his greatest achievement. And this should have been the end. But Afton would come back. He always does.
But I have an even better surprise for you. And you're not gonna believe this. We found one. A real one.
I've been living in the shadows.
30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors, Afton would be released from the shadows. A corpse in a suit, free to roam a world scarred by his crimes. Ironically, he was more alive when he was dead, for now he was uninhibited. His voice would reveal a certain delight that was once restrained to mimic sophistication. But now he could unleash the narcissistic monster within. But there were those who knew Afton was still alive. His old friend Henry knew that Afton roamed, and how his victims were still suffering from his actions. This nightmare had to end. But how does one stop someone like Afton? Ironically, by playing to the very same ego that started this tragedy, and setting a trap that Afton would not be able to resist. A trap using a tainted legacy that would forever haunt him.
What are we talking about? We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee. That's right, restaurant ownership and management.
What a deceptive calling. I knew it was a lie the moment I heard it, obviously. But it is intriguing nonetheless.
Narcissistic tendencies are at the core a combination of an exaggerated self-image and low self-esteem. Arrogance without confidence. This is why Afton will disguise his insecurities by depicting a mask of omniscience, to hide the fact that he was fooled. He abhors the notion of anyone lying to him, as he ironically felt lied to when he lost everything. How he perceived everyone turning against him when he lost his stage and son. There's an irony to this, as he had always been trying to manufacture a lie of his own. One that has likely been there since the beginning of his career. One that has been twisted by his narcissistic envy and despair. The lie that he was immortal and beyond reach compared to the world around him. But no matter how much he may have yearned to be so much more, in the end, he's just another human, and would disappear like one.
This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole, so don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
While Remnant may perpetuate someone beyond death, it is weak to high temperatures. Thus, Henry Emily committed his final act in life to lure every victim of this horror story and their perpetrator to a fake pizza place, trapping them inside and then burning it down. When the cinders and smoke cleared, there was nothing left. William Afton was dead, and the children would rest in peace. Or at least, They should.
I am remade, but not by you. By the one you should not have killed.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
Cassidy, the child-possessing Golden Freddy, did not move on. Instead, they would ensure William Afton suffered, even if they were warned not to by an elderly voice, urging them to let their soul rest and to leave the demon to his demons. Cassidy could not let her murderer go. Afton would be forced to act as the security guard while haunted by the animatronics he and Henry created. He was attacked by obscure secondary characters, taunted with reflections of his wife, and ultimately killed by the reminders of his failures and sins. Henry's last words to him are ironic, for this existence certainly is William's personal hell.
Greetings from the fire, and from the one you should not have killed.
He tried to release you, but I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here, no matter how many times they burn us.
This time, death cannot save you.
William Afton was a narcissist that yearned for immortality, and ironically, he achieved it. In this hell, he would play the security guard for eternity, his immortal performance fully realized. For now, William Afton was truly dead, and the tragedy could be forgotten. But his legacy would remain. A dark legacy of death and despair, fueled by an immortal performance. After all, this all began because of Henry's technology mixed with William's ambition. With such a dark desire, his Circus of Life could always have an encore, though perhaps a mimicry of the original is a far more dangerous performance.
Take a mask. 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 Take a mask.
I always come back.